Tatiana Rosen de Cartien? From the house of Cartien? Asked the boy. The butler replied, Yes. He told her that you were absent, but she insisted on waiting for you. The boy proceeded to the room where Tatiana had revived him. He opened the door and walked in and saw her. There was a girl in the room. She stood by the window and looked outside. How it was raining. The guy walks into the room and asks what she needs from him. He didn't think she looked like someone who usually lived in places like this. He poured the wine and handed it to the girl. So why did such an independent, noble lady decide to visit him, a commoner, and asked for a glass of wine? Guy poured himself a glass of wine as well, and as he sipped a little, he wondered what she was up to by coming to him. The girl stood silent for a while, staring into her glass and not knowing where to start the conversation. Tatiana paused for a moment, then said, Let's get married. The guy was surprised. He asked, What? Tatiana replied, she had waited so long to ask him to marry her. Ha, what do you think? He's an idiot, the guy said. The guy got angry and wanted to leave, but the girl stopped him, saying, Keinel, he admits he was interested in her once, but that doesn't mean anything. He was interested in her body, not in her. Fine, said Tatiana. You're attracted to the one thing she possesses. Keinel said, Do you realize now what you're saying? He thought there was some common sense in it. Well, that's exactly why she's here. Listen, Lady Cardian, Keinel said. Well, the girl interrupted him and said she had left that castle. Abandoned or rejected, it doesn't matter anymore. Tatiana said they could discuss the details. Sunny day. A voice rang out. Rightly so. She supposes the rumors were true, and the Duke is really going to propose today. It seems Her Majesties and Vicomtesse Cartien have just concluded their negotiations. The date of the banquet coincides perfectly with the lady's 21st birthday. They both have extremely strong wills, and would never give in to each other. Considering how much centuries have done for the duchy, do you really think she left empty-handed? But this is the 5th time in a row. Oh, it's Lady Tatiana. Seeing the girl Tatiana, these women realized why the Duchy of Atlas had spent so much money today. They probably had a reason to summon this doll. Hush, she will hear you. We need to be careful with our words after all. She's going to be a viscountess soon. Tatiana stood there wondering if they really think she can't hear them. Some female gossipers had been discussing her the whole time. Honey, let me get a better look at you. Your late father would have been proud of you. The older sister approached Tatiana. The older sister's name was Anisia Obalidin Carter, the second daughter of House Carter. Your brother-in-law has prepared a sapphire mark as a presentation, she told her younger sister Tatiana. Where is he? She can't find Duke Atlas anywhere, Anisia said. Should she care about that? Men are always looking for an excuse to get away to smoke and discuss politics, business, or other matters, the woman said as she approached her sisters. The sisters turned and saw their mother. Mother, they said. The woman's name was Larissa Lauren de Cartien, head of the House of Cartien. Worked so hard on tonight's banquet, one of the sisters said, but the other was indignant. Everyone calls it the Ad Atlas House banquet, but they all know Mother planned the whole thing. Mother Larissa asked her daughters, Do you know where Regina is on a day like this? Isn't she tired of wandering around the castle? Don't make an example of her, Tatiana. Mother repeated and wagged her finger. Don't take an example from her, Tatiana. Do you understand her? After all, you are the last hope and most important jewel of her life. Yes, Mother, Tatiana replied. You need to think about Her Majesty's future. She sent over an engagement ring with a 100-carat diamond, no less. Is that so? Tatiana replied. It seems that with the previous Duchess gone, the Empress is trying to take care of those on her side, Mother replied. You know what that means, Tatiana? Don't worry, and Mother, she'll pretend until the very end. Everyone will think it was a surprise to her. She'll cry, looking at everyone with an innocent look. They don't know if anyone will actually fall for it. But those are the rules of high society. Pretend to be deceived even if you know the truth, Mother replied. Tatiana said that she was a little tired, and Mother answered her that the second floor was now empty, so you could rest there. Tatiana followed to rest a little on the second floor. As she passed by the invited guests, she heard phrases such as, Lady Tatiana, you are as beautiful as ever. That's the commoner, Camilla. How dare she show up here? She should know her place. Does she really think she can be here with such status? Keeping women like that under one's thumb, Even for Countess Teresa, is too much. Wherever she's attracted to, she'll always be dressed in designer clothes like that. Just look at her outfit. She's too frivolous. As Tatiana passed Camilla, she thought that not being a nobleman was a crime. It was a barrier that could not be overcome. But at least this woman doesn't stop fighting. Come to think of it, there was a man she probably used to get past that hurdle as well. The scarlet-eyed diplomat, Keinel. Or there was someone like him there, Tatiana thought. She shouldn't think about it. It's not like she knows him. So the engagement, her engagement, right? Just the engagement. That's the kind of thing a girl should be thinking about. 100-carat diamond. Yes, Tatiana thought, looking at her hand and already trying on the ring with her eyes. Whether its size would mean anything or not, it would definitely be heavy. Do all brides feel this way? The girl had a thought. As she passed the room, Tatiana heard a girl's voice speaking. "Ha, Duke Atlas! Be gentle, please. What will you do if your beautiful bride catches you looking like that?" said the girl to Mr. Atlas. Atlas replied that did she think it was the girl who had been dubbed a doll for no reason. He doesn't know if she can even think for herself. Since she is so spoiled by her mother, it will take her a day just to put on all the jewelry she received today, Mr. Atlas said. "Goodness, your lordship, that's a bit much. How can you say that?" the girl said. "Stop talking and focus on the case," Atlas admonished her. The girl said she understood, but could he please? Just then there was a creak of the door. Atlas turned to see who had entered the room, and Tatiana, in his own words, a doll, as he said, walked into the room. When her son-in-law had an affair on the side a few years ago, Mother said, "If men can cheat, so can women. Women can do what men can do." Such thoughts are not characteristic of liberal views. They are more cold and calculating, assessing which side is trustworthy. So, back to our incident. When Tatiana entered the room, she saw Atlas and the girl together hugging and kissing. Atlas said, "Tiana, what are you doing here?" Tiana is a short form of the name Tatiana, which is what the main character is called, only by people close to her. And she's just a helpless puppet in the hands of her own mother. Atlas began to make excuses that he could explain everything she had seen. Tatiana said, "If you don't want the guests to know about it, you should speak more softly." Tatiana tried to calm herself down and wondered what she should do in this situation. She would have loved to kick those two out, to embarrass them in front of everyone, but that wouldn't do her any good. The rumors would spread like wildfire, and she would be involved in them as well. This is the worst birthday she could imagine. She knew he was the kind of man who would look for a relationship on the side. However, she never imagined that he would cheat on her on the day of their engagement. "Tiana, hear him out. It's just a misunderstanding," Atlas tried to say, but the girl said, "What kind of misunderstanding is it? You can see everything perfectly here." Atlas started to say, "You calm down first," but Tatiana absolutely didn't even scream at all. She said, "Your lordship, you have not yet seen her in anger. Listen carefully. She'll be leaving now, so you'll have a chance to clean up this mess. She doesn't care if you tell her everything or lie that something urgent happened at the palace. Just make sure her name isn't mentioned out loud." "You're talking like that! What about our engagement?" Atlas shouted. Tatiana tried to explain to him. He must understand what engagement meant. But for some reason Atlas fell silent and answered nothing. Tatiana said, "Go on, she won't bother them," turned around and walked away. Almost leaving the room, she turned and said, "She still hasn't gotten her ring, but I'm glad she doesn't have to worry about it anymore." Atlas was very infuriated by Tatiana's calmness and poise. He shouted at her, "Tiana!" When the evening came to an end, Tatiana dressed, got ready, and went outside to the courtyard to get into the carriage. Her sisters were waiting in the courtyard. Viviane Laboni Cartien, the fourth daughter, and Caterina Ante Cartien, the third daughter. The girls asked, "Oh, Tiana, why is she here?" Tatiana stepped closer to them and said, "Vivian," and couldn't even say anything else. The sisters began to ask, "Are you done yet?" The second noticed there was no ring and said, "What do you mean? Still no ring?" And then Tiana said that they hadn't even started to finish anything. The girls asked what she meant. "Tiana?" But the girl was very upset. The girl got into the carriage and told her sisters to tell her mother to visit the library on the second floor. The sisters began to ask, "Why? What happened?" And then Tatiana turned and said, "Aren't you yourself curious about how animals mate?" The sisters were left standing there in shock. They didn't understand what had happened. Tatiana returned to her palace. She was met by a maid who asked, "Madam, are you back already? She will prepare dinner for you right away." Tatiana replied, "No, I'm going to the bathroom first." Tatiana turned to Anne the maid. "Do you know what day it is?" Anne replied, "Of course. Today is your birthday, mistress. And also today you were to be proposed to by Duke Atlas," said Anne very cheerfully. How quickly that rumor spread, Tatiana thought. When she got to her room, the girl sat down on her bed and began to remember how everything began their acquaintance with Atlas. At a charity event this weekend, Duke Atlas will be sitting with her. He's rather good looking. "What do you think, dear?" said Mother. "It's been 4 years since Vivi's wedding, and now it's finally her turn to get engaged. For a mere viscountess to marry a duke is the limit of dreams. And it's all thanks to you, Mother," Tatiana said. Tatiana's mother, Larissa Lauren de Cartier, left alone an unfortunate penniless widow, took it upon herself to care for her 5 daughters. These beautiful kids that totally went into it ended up being the most valuable investment. It all began 17 years ago with the engagement of Anesia, her first daughter, and Count Oberon, the head of the public relations department. Then the second daughter, Regina, married a very rich man. Having raised her status through the successful marriages of her 2 daughters, she decided to use this strategy further. And her third daughter, Katerina, won the heart of the Marquis, who ran the Ministry of Justice. The story of how the two met by fate at the opera became a legend of high society. Katerina's twin had only to choose from countless marriage proposals. Viscountess Cartier, who conquered society in only 20 years, could only reach the top with her youngest daughter Tatiana, in whom she invested the most effort. All the sisters, as one, tried to explain to Mother that they too could help, asking to please let them help if Mother needed money, power, or family status. But the mother, Larissa, kept saying that Tatiana needed all this to possess it all. The only one who could satisfy her exorbitant pride was the master of the Duchy of Atlas, Alexei. The Duchy of Atlas. In the Frey Empire, their house has the most influence among the 3 duchies. They are closely related to Empress Charlize, who now reigns. The young master of the duchy and nephew of the Empress, Alexei, young, handsome, and brimming with ambition, is the best candidate of all. Even her sisters, who at first tried to stop her, claim it was impossible. In the end, they used all the power and connections of their husbands to help their little sister find love. The Viscountess concluded negotiations with the Empress 2 months ago. Tatiana was promised a 100-carat ring for her 21st birthday. Tatiana won't say she was really upset about the ring, but people, she thinks, will gossip about it. Well, that's the kind of thing they like. This probably won't end up as a simple scandal, the girl thought. Just as Tatiana lay down on her bed to think and reminisce, her mother and sisters burst into her room. They shouted, "Tatiana!" Mother ran up to her and asked, "Girl, are you all right? I'm sure you've already heard from her sisters, but she doesn't need to show up there anymore," Tatiana said. "Well, Mother," she was told, "that her treasure, Tatiana, must be." This took her by surprise, but Tatiana noticed at once that her mother was not angry. She had spent so much effort and money for this marriage. She could probably buy several houses in the capital with that money. Mother kept saying that she was very worried about Tatiana, but Tatiana didn't understand what Mother knew. She was saying what she knew. That she was sorry. It just happened. Mother asked her to tell them what really happened. And then Tatiana, with a calm soul, already began to tell the truth that she accidentally caught them when she passed the library on the 2nd floor. They were doing it there. Mother stopped and thought about it and said, "Ha! So that's what happened." Tatiana said that Herzog should be thankful that she hadn't lost her mind when she saw it all back then. She didn't understand he was so intent on winning her over. He had literally been obsessed with her for 2 months, and was even going to propose but couldn't wait a little longer, and chose someone else. She must have been very puzzled. She was shocked, Mother said. "She's sorry," Tatiana said. "She doesn't know if they had time to clean up all the tracks or not." Her mother interrupted her and said not to worry about it, her joy. "Tatiana, she is your mother, so the daughter can rely and relax on her mother. You've done the right thing, but Mother, she really needs rest," said the sisters. "Of course, otherwise her complexion will be ruined, and it will be very unfortunate," said the sisters. When everyone left, it was just the mother and one of the daughters. She broke up the conversation by saying that no matter how sexually frustrated the Duke was, He could choose any place he wanted. Why the library? Where are you going with this? The daughter asked. The daughter said, You saw the look on Tiana's face just now. It must have been the first time she experienced something like that. How can someone with such high self-esteem bear it? That's what she's saying. She spoiled Tatiana too much with her love. She should have been taught to react calmly to such things, Mother said grudgingly. What happened when she left? Asked Tatiana. The sisters surrounding her began to say, Tatiana, she's in a bad mood. No one knows what to do when she snaps like that. She's usually very calm. Mother went to the second floor to take care of everything personally. After all, no one wanted to be found out. It seemed to have covered all the tracks. The Duke said that something had happened at the palace that required his urgent presence and left. Tatiana sat and remembered everything she had told him, word for word. She didn't care if he told her everything, or if he lied that something urgent had happened at the palace. Just make sure her name wasn't mentioned out loud. He couldn't even come up with his own excuse. He just repeated her words. As the sisters helped remove the jewelry, Tatiana remembered what the Duke had said to his girlfriend. That it would take Tatiana a whole day just to put on all the jewelry she got from her mother. It's nauseating. Did she really mean so little to this man? On the other hand, she hadn't thought the Duke could be a good husband, even though Mother played a big part in it. If she'd been against it, it wouldn't have gotten this far. Since any option would have been good for her, it was natural to choose better. Besides, the Duke was pretty good looking, all things considered. He wasn't perfect, but he had everything he needed to be, Tatiana thought. The rest would depend on mutual trust and effort. While not some fairy tale love story, she thought they would be happily married. Could it be that Tatiana could only think to herself that she had wished for too much? The sisters tried to calm Tatiana as best they could, telling her not to worry so much. Most likely Mother would meet with Her Majesty to clear things up. Right, she can only trust her family, Tatiana thought. After all, her sisters are always with her. The Northern Empire of Frey. The capital of the empire, the city of Libron, where the sun does not descend from the sky for half the year, and whose magnificent culture has been a delight to the eyes for many years, has reached its peak. And the main symbol of the splendor of the royal court, the residence of the Empress, is located in the center of the Polonia Palace. When she visits this place, it is always warm. One of her relatives, Count Oberdin, brought this greenhouse from the royal palace of Cormenia, the Viscountess said. Larissa said she heard the King of Cormenia beg you in his will not to touch that greenhouse, but she doesn't think it helped much, since the young prince is so vulnerable to the cold. Let's get down to business. What do you want to discuss? As if she doesn't know she cares for her son as much as Larissa cares for her daughter. Alexei said that something not particularly pleasant had happened. Not a very nice thing to say, and you don't seem to know what really happened. Your son crossed the line. Of all days, he was bound to do it on Tatiana's birthday. She thought he had some sense, said Larissa, Tatiana's mother. You just insulted her son, Alexei, the woman said. Insulted? What do you mean, like what? She dared to even think such a thing, Tatiana's mother said. In any case, Alexei's mother said that she sincerely regretted what had happened. And then Tatiana's mother added that she was the one who was sorry. She thought she would be able to breed with the Empress, but there was nothing more to be done. Are you trying to dissolve the marriage? Said the woman. How dare that old fox? She was so obedient before, thought Alexei's mother. She's shocked at how easily you can break this arrangement between their families. The Duchy of Atlas will soon become part of the imperial family. On my mother's side, Alexei's mother said. Then in turn, Tatiana's mother added that, as she remembered, it was the Duchy of Atlas that had been the first to violate the agreement. Larissa, Tatiana's mother, got up from the table and said, Well, I guess this is the end of the day. Thank you for giving her your valuable time. Alexei's mother sat there thinking that she was just going to leave. She would never do that. Tatiana's mother went on to say that she needed to look after her dear daughter. Poor thing. She had been through such a shock. Now she should take care of her. Alexei's mother said, What a shame. Hope she gets better soon. Alexei's mother wondered what she had come up with. Well, there was no point in her continuing this conversation with Larissa. In the future, her son could become an emperor. Almost leaving, Larissa turned around and said, Oh, that's right. She almost forgot. Did you hear that His Majesty the Crown Prince is returning to Lebanon in 2 days? And Alexei's mother said, What? She was horrified, along with that most famous red-eyed wolf. Gosh, so you didn't know? Said Larissa. I was told about it by her 4th son-in-law, Marquis Rabboni. He is abroad at the moment, so there can be no doubt about the veracity of these rumors. Oh, she seems to have overstayed her welcome. She won't be in the way again, and went to the carriage. Alexei's mother jumped up from her chair and shouted after her, How is Lady Tatiana feeling? As she was leaving, Larissa thought she felt fine. But still she stopped and said that as a mother. And it seemed more important now that Tatiana was going through a bad time in her life. The whole family gathered in a gathering. The sisters and their husbands came. The sisters asked when Tatiana had last gone shopping, but the girl sat very sad. She wanted nothing at all. She was upset about the situation with Alexei. Why does she need to make these purchases? That's right. Because one of the sisters said she was just accepting gifts from her sisters and their husbands. To feel better, she needs to buy something, right? Now she knows the real Tatiana. We're gonna empty every store in town. Do you want to buy something? One of the sisters asked. Tatiana said, No, nothing. Besides, she already has those dresses. That's why the return of the Marquis of Oroboni is so exciting. I'm sure he'll give you something extraordinary when he returns from the south. Yes, the fashion there is a little different from theirs. She had heard that it was customary for the local ladies to wear a dress with a deep neckline. The other girls were supportive. What a shame. But Lebrun has similar outfits too. It seems that their designers discuss girls' outfits and dresses. She's Count Teresa's mistress. Do you like what she does? As far as she's concerned, it's a common rag that only suits women as available as herself. Though perhaps they would look good on Eileen, and the price for such outfits would appropriately be less than the cost, right? Tatiana said that the Count's wife, God, and should not be, decided something to help me. I do not know. Once you don't need headphones, you don't need them. You don't have to buy them just to buy them back. Teresa's been dead for a long time, so she can't be considered a mistress. Tatiana, what are you talking about? Shouted Rebecca. Tatiana replied, You shouldn't make such a statement about someone you don't like. By the way, Eileen, news came from the south recently. They say your brother was present on the battlefield. Ah yes, he came home the day before. There must be a victory banquet at the palace soon, laughed Elin. All the knights will be there. Ah, real knights with swords. The girls are already imagining the reception. The flag of our empire has been planted in the south, so there won't be any battles there for a while. It's all thanks to the Crown Prince, Elin said. Regina told her that no, it wasn't because of him. They won because of the Black Wolf. Could anyone have forgotten that the territory of their empire had nearly doubled in recent years thanks to this man? He is now called the Red-Eyed Messenger. He's unbelievable. What do you say, girls? His lust for killing is astounding. It would be hard to find a more bloodthirsty knight than him, Rebecca said. Oh, that's right. She's also been told that you get too close to him and the man freezes. More. The atmosphere has gotten kind of tense, Rebecca said. She thought they should stop and just ask Tatiana about everything. You're quite familiar with the man that acts like a beast, aren't you? Rebecca said, turning to Tatiana. Of all of them, you were the only one who saw him up close enough, Tatiana. Tatiana, born into the family of the Marquis of Carrion, was supposed to rule the upper classes. Everyone bowed before her because she considered herself a true queen. Because of her marriage to a rich man, her sisters became so arrogant. What did he say then, Tatiana? He told you to have fun, to get married. It was his last wish before going to the front, Tatiana said. The girls started asking around. He sent you a letter in which he insulted everyone. However, with the way the Crown Prince denied everything, you should have known what to do. You too, Tatiana, should know what to do. She understands now. Why was the Viscountess so angry? There's a rumor that Tatiana is related by blood to the Marquis, but no one knows if it's true. Your mother offered so much effort for the wedding, and you got involved with a man who is no different from a commoner and ruined everything. Tatiana, how are you feeling? You said he had a red iris. Tatiana said, Let me, she needs to remember. Stop it! Just say something already. Why are you being so rude? Aren't they all friends of yours? Or was it noisy back then? Don't you remember? She got a letter from this man. If she remembered them all, that number would be very large. Regina got very angry and said, "That's right. Someone so honorable. Like you, who will soon become a duchess, won't be able to memorize all the letters from other men. So what is to be done?" "Well, finally. There was a rumor that she was getting you an engagement ring on your birthday. Said something happened at the palace, so he got worried when he left." "Something doesn't add up," Regina said. "Maybe others she can guide, but not her. Not many people know, but Tatiana's mom can quietly visit Duke Atlas's estate, so she can also quietly escort you in and out of the manor, right?" asked Regina. "And what did Tatiana say? What do you want with your questioning? You know very well that her mother would never worry about such a thing, nor would she be cold. Her mother she won't pay attention to those who aren't on her level anyway," Tatiana said. Maid Anne asks Tatiana, "Is Lady Rebecca well, if you've heard any strange rumors?" she says. Tatiana replied, "She may be jealous, but she's still just as good at calculating ahead, so no problem." "Don't worry, the rumors will soon die down," the maid said. Tatiana replied, "Maybe only if Regina gets divorced again and all the attention turns to her." "Mistress," said the maid Anne. Tatiana replied, "Send the yellow box. Elin has taken a liking to its contents." Anne asked, "What if the lady thinks you like her husband? It's an expensive hat, isn't it?" Tatiana said she didn't buy it for herself anyway. "Ha, my lady, that's not right," replied Maid Anne. The girls finished shopping as they saw guys in black cloaks standing outside the store window. They thought they were mercenaries, but when Tatiana looked closer, she saw black hair peeking out of the hood. She had déjà vu. She had seen this same person somewhere before. Right, like it was him. So he's back. In fact, excited Tatiana was. The girls looked like they were about to leave as a voice rang out. "Unbelievable!" When Tatiana turned around, she saw Alexei Atlas standing there. She said, "Your Grace." She disappeared for a few days and now he finds her in a place like this. The guys standing outside in black raincoats saw Alexei Atlas and Tatiana in the window. One of the guys said that this man, he noticed. The guy with the red hair said, hooded, "They're gone. Commander, you must make a decision by today. This is an order from His Imperial Highness the Crown Prince." "Order of what else?" the red-eyed guy replied, but his aide said, "Commander, you must." "Take care of it," his commander replied and strode forward. The fellow aide said, "Yeah, how can he when it comes to where you live? He really has no idea how things work in this world, even considering he's a war hero who saved the Crown Prince's life, and one worthy to walk in the front ranks of the knights returning home. But Lebron is a big city after all. At least tell me if you have any requests," said the aide to the red-eyed guy. "His Highness said that he would prefer you stay near the Imperial Palace. For example, on Triamanial Street, where the upper-class nobles live. Well, or here in the center of the city," the aide said to the red-eyed boy. The guy turned around and said, "Somewhere as far away as you can get from here," back to Tatiana and Alexei. Alexei asks, "Why is she quiet, Tiana?" But she replies, "She thought she said not to call her that." And he continues, "They thought how troublesome it seems rumors are spreading even faster this time." Alexei raised an eyebrow and said, "How long is she going to act like a spoiled child? Enough. They need to talk." Tatiana asked him to be brief. She didn't have time to stand with him. "So be it, let's discuss it," Alexei said, was offended and ran away as if it were such an important day. "Offended?" said Tatiana indignantly. "Your lordship seems to misunderstand something badly. You're the one who doesn't understand something, you think. Marriage is some kind of joke. You have no idea how disconnected you are from reality. You can't act on your immediate impulses." Tatiana's eyes snapped open. She said indignantly, "Yes, do you even know what? She had to endure that day, the day she was born, the day they weren't engaged." "Why should she know that?" asked the girl. Alexei remained silent. Tatiana said, "As far as I'm concerned, this conversation is over. She doesn't know why you came all this way just to say that, but she doesn't have the slightest desire to continue to be in your company." "Alexei, she said so. That's why you had to throw Natalia out," Natalia interjected Tatiana. "And who is that?" Oh, right, she remembered. It must have been a girl named Natalia he was with that day. "Don't pretend!" shouted Alexei, as if he didn't know her. "She came running to her in tears. Did you really have to go that far, throwing that poor girl out of the hotel in this weather?" Tatiana said, "Are you really saying she did it? Who else in Lebron is capable of doing it?" "If you are," Alexei said, "she can bet anyone, Her sisters did it, Alexei said. So now you remember? Or are you going to keep pretending to be an innocent sheep from now on? Then here are a couple more details. Tatiana said she thought you shouldn't have done that. Your lordship, it appears that you are so angry about the failed engagement? Or because you threw out your poor mistress? Alexei blanched and didn't know what to say to him. I see, Tatiana replied. If the former, then we've already talked it over. However, if it's about your mistress, then you've come to the wrong person, don't you think? Alexei shouted that she had no heart at all. It's not like he's saying he longs to marry this girl. You've already gotten your way that way. So why make so much fuss, so much over one incident? Not only kicked her out, but apparently all the other hotels in the central district are refusing to hire her, Alexei said. Well, Tatiana hurriedly replied, so why don't you hire her at your estate? What did the guy yell? He who doesn't even have the courage to hire his mistress has no right to discuss her sisters. Who do you think owns all the hotels on this street? Doesn't the owner decide who stays in his house? Alexa yelled, Tiana! She said not to call her that. He's just glad you had nothing to do with it, at least. You seem to know where the line needs to be drawn. However, he can assure you that your sisters will have to take responsibility for their actions. For what? Asked Tatiana. If your lordship had bothered to reflect on this for even a few minutes, you would have been grateful that the incident in question had not escalated. If a similar thing had happened to her other sister, Regina, that unfortunate man would have been found in the nearest gutter. Tatiana continued. But does he know what she's grateful for? To him most of all, that she wasn't in love with him. France would have been swimming beside her, and him. As she left, the girl said she hoped they wouldn't meet again, and if her mother found out that your lordship had sought her out on the matter, things would not end as peacefully as before. Alexei said boldly, Oh, your mother. And who do you think told him your location? In the palace, Tatiana's mother is discussing what is the best fabric to choose for the wedding dress of her favorite daughter, Tatiana. She would like to hear the opinion of people, those who know best in this matter. The women who came to visit Tatiana's mother, Larissa, were dumbfounded. They thought that the wedding dress seemed that the rumors about the dissolution of her engagement to the Duke were false. She thought of doing something unusual since they were talking about it. However, if they wanted to make it harmonize with the jewelry Her Highness Consort had sent, then her mother didn't have time to finish her sentence, and at that moment Tatiana burst into the room with the words, Mother! Mother turned around, saw Tatiana and said, There's our Tatiana. Didn't want to stay longer and walk around a bit? Mother asked. Tatiana was outraged. She asked, What's even going on? Tiana, the mother said. The girl interrupted her and said she had to explain everything to her because she didn't understand anything. Then Larissa said, Yes, could we please call it a day? But the women said, as already. Mother said she had a headache, and everyone, of course, very culturally said, Yes, of course, since you have a headache, of course they should leave. Tatiana asked, seeing the mannequin with a piece of material already hanging on it. What is this? The Matushka replied, You still ask? Your wedding dress. That's why she's asking why she needs it. Mother began to humor me, saying, Oh, her dear daughter, of course she must wear it at her wedding, that dress. Soon you will be a duchess. We must prepare for that, mustn't we? Mother said. Tatiana asked, And for whom? The girl couldn't stand it and screamed, Mother, you really arranged all this, even knowing how she was humiliated back then. From the very beginning it was you who made it all up. You said yourself that she can choose not to marry if she doesn't want to. And her mother told the Duke to meet her behind her back, and even told him where she lived. Then why didn't you invite him to their house in the first place? Mother tried to answer what she wanted. It would be nice if he picked you up tonight. Tatiana said that Mother doesn't care about anyone but you. Matushka asked because I'm your mother. Tiana didn't have much time to get her thoughts in order? Mother asked. Mother told Tatiana to let her emotions control her actions. She's been putting up with her childishness for too long already, Tatiana interjected. And if it's not childish, she's always been good to you. She knows her well, so she'll give the position every girl in the world dreams of. And she can't even find the words when Tatiana acts like a little kid. It's such a small thing. Yet she doesn't realize it either. She just hopes she can rest and think things over again. Mother asked Tatiana. Tatiana answered clearly. The engagement with the Duke has been broken off. Matushka asked. What do you mean? She can't hold hands with him as if nothing had happened, Mother said. Do you think she would be happy to see him again? Mother asked. Disgraced, Mother said despairingly. She had put so much into this wedding. Tatiana, she doesn't know what it really means to be dishonored. She doesn't know at all. Imagine Tatiana when her husband passed away. The debts were overwhelming and she couldn't even cry. That's the real shame. And do you know why that happened? Because if she had let her feelings get the better of her, her little sisters would have starved to death. The day after her husband passed away, she had to lead her 4 children miles, for there was no carriage. It's a disgrace. Asking for handouts from a grandmother who never loved her. It's a disgrace. Now all the vile rumors about her giving herself to men for pieces of bread. It was truly horrible. Hiding in a warehouse, suffering from nausea, and still keeping her mouth shut. What a disgrace. Compared to her problem, your Tatiana is completely worthless. Ah, no, that's even better, said Mother. As compensation, the Empress has promised to give you the Palace of Mutton. It's the warmest palace in all of Lebanon, so it'll be just fine if she stays there for the winter. And she, Tatiana, should have a place for you to rest if you're unwell, as you are now. Tatiana asked Mother, Don't you have any self-respect? Self-respect, you say? If I had it, you wouldn't have been born, Tatiana Rosen. Daughter, what does she love most? The next day, Mother called all the sisters, all her daughters, into a room. When Anisha arrived, she asked Mother, What happened? The sisters are already gathered in the room. On the table lay the jewelry. Anisha, come in, Mother said. The sisters say, She's still asking. They're all getting ready for the wedding. Anyway, they need to measure everything again. Because if she loses weight, her finger size will shrink too. So they need to try on all the jewelry now to make it fit. Mother, do you still want to play this wedding? The eldest daughter asked in a very sad voice. Mother asked, Then she thinks the engagement will be broken off? The older daughter asked, Where's Tatiana? She heard that she didn't like the idea, and she hasn't eaten anything since. She wants to take her back to her place, get everything ready for her, and let's go to her already. The maid Anne said she would call her now and ran after Tatiana. Mother turned around and said, She's the one who called you, but she can't let her go. Anisha, are you doing this because you're worried about her? You want to take her to your place? Mother smiled and said, Worry? It's only you who worry. They are even when she's perfectly fine. So you decided to celebrate Tatiana and Duke's wedding after all? The eldest daughter asked. Mother said, Well, then find her a better husband than that. Or do you think it's easy to find a man with money and status from a decent background like Satin? She shouldn't worry about brides like Kitty. She should worry about her husband's parents like Bibi. Well, Hertz cheated on her, said Anisha. Mother asked, and that it's in the past. Why do you all keep bringing it up so you do not know, said Mother. You go to the royal family's palace receptions like it's your home, and you all thank her mother. Don't you realize the truth because she can't lie anymore? Rumors are discussed everywhere, as in the Duke story. You've heard but never seen anything with your own eyes. Zia angrily told the mother that. But she was interrupted by Matushka saying if you can't put up with it, then just wait until the ceremony is over. At that moment, Tatiana was on the second floor and heard it all. She was very upset, and she thought it was impossible to hear such a thing from her own mother. You know the truth. Yeah, Tatiana screamed. They're not strangers, so why are you keeping it from her? That's what she means, dear daughter, than to know the truth. But pretend you don't know anything. It would have been better to be frank with Mother from the start. Mother saw a bag standing near Tatiana. She asked, And what are you doing with that bag? Are you going to leave with your older sister? Did you think she would allow it, considering how much effort it took to raise her? Tatiana came down to her mother and said, Yes, she has grown obedient, just as you wanted her to, Mother. Tiana, she has already explained everything to you. But you still don't understand anything, said Mother. Tatiana cried out, Can't you hear anything? What is she telling you? She won't marry. Anisha took Tatiana's hand and said, Let's go home first, okay? But Tatiana snatched her hand from her and said that she thought you would be different. Why are you like this? Why are you like this to her? She must become a member of the ducal family to make your older sister's future even brighter. Your older sister, the Countess of Aberdeen to be exact, is about to become the owner of the Oberdeen Trading Company. And together with Duke Atlas, you could raise the credit scores of banks and businesses. Now look here. In front of you are the wives of Marquis Raboni and Ante. There are already plans to build hotels not only in Lebanon, but throughout the empire. Well, now that the Duke's mistress is gone, it remains to be seen if the Duke will cooperate with us. Is that why you forced her to get married, just for that reason? Tatiana, your sisters have been married for a long time. You should be grateful, for you have not needed anything because of their marriages. Your sisters went for it, and you have a reason to refuse, Mother said. Mother, please stop this. Enough is enough, Anisha said. She will take Tatiana away from here. If you really care so much for Tatiana, Mother said, let her go. But the older sister said they were not empty words. Tatiana thought that these were not empty words. Even if her sons-in-law's influence were removed, her mother would still hold the entire aristocratic society in her hands. Money, power, and connections. Matushka approached Tatiana and said, Dear, she's telling the truth. She really doesn't feel like doing this. Tatiana stood looking at her mother and thought that now that she had connections with the Duke, who might become emperor in the future, it would be so easy for her to do whatever she wanted with them. Matushka asked why Tatiana couldn't give in, and then everything would be as it was between them. Mother held out the 100-carat ring that had been promised to Tatiana. They would return to the time when they were happy. In 1 week's time, said Mother, there will be a reception at the palace in honor of the victory in the war. You can imagine how happy everyone will be when they announce another piece of good news on such a wonderful day. Tatiana asked what if she refused to marry Alexei Atlas. Her mother replied to her that she would then have to get out of this house and give back everything she had ever given her. Ever since she was a little girl, Tatiana's mother was on her side. She always said, Tiana, you're everything to her. Even though she had no father, she took on the responsibilities of both parents. So Tatiana never felt lonely or abandoned. Growing up, she realized that Mother was not always a kind person, but she didn't care what others said. She had never felt dislike or shame for her before. No, she loved her. She loved it all, the great mother, the beautiful sisters, all those gorgeous dresses and jewelry, and she obeyed her not because of that, but because of the many hardships her widowed mother had to endure raising 4 children while she was pregnant with Tatiana. She only thought she should be grateful to her for what she'd been through. Yes, not all of her actions could be called right, but they could be explained by necessity, Tatiana pondered when she woke up the next morning. Anne the maid came into the room and said, Oh, are you awake yet? Why were you sitting up? She told you to lie down and rest. Tatiana replied that, Anne, you know she's not sick. Maybe so, but you haven't eaten in days. Let's at least have some food today, shall we? I'll bring this closer to you. Tatiana thought that she really couldn't stay like this any longer. She needed to eat and come to her senses. If she continued crying and fainting, she was afraid that next time she would wake up in a funeral parlor. Mistress, wouldn't it be better to discuss things with your mother rather than continue this? Tatiana asked. At least Anne didn't have to bore her. She had more than enough of her sister's healing. Anne, does she look like a rebellious child? Asked Tatiana. No, she doesn't, replied Anne's maid. Tatiana recalls the words of her mother, who told her to think it over carefully, whether her pride is worth losing everything she has. She knows Mother as well as she knows her, and she's clearly not kidding. This sort of thing happened once before, someone questioning her origins and then suddenly going bankrupt, or when the newspaper denouncing her second son-in-law's infidelity disappeared overnight. If Mother decided she should leave, she would. If she didn't know about everything from the beginning, then it would be a different story. But she can no longer continue to pretend like nothing happened. Doesn't want that kind of life, Tatiana said. It had been 3 days since she'd closed. Her mom had probably frozen her account back on the first day. On the second, she would have destroyed all her personal connections. And on the third, but could anyone last that long against her? The maid Anne brought a box containing a necklace and asked Tatiana to wear it. But the girl refused, saying she no longer needed it. The only thing in this house that belongs to her is her body. To think she's only realizing that now. Looking at herself in the mirror, Tatiana said, Turns out this is what she looks like. The real her is without jewelry or fancy outfits. Tatiana smiled at herself in the mirror and said that, she must be richer than she thought. Tatiana decided to walk to the museum, admire the paintings, have a little rest. From what was going on, she met an acquaintance there. He had no idea that Mrs. Tatiana was so well versed in art, said the young man, who complimented Tatiana. You flatter her, Marquis Overton. Compared to you, her knowledge is insignificant, Tatiana said. By the way, he noticed you arrived at the museum alone. And what about his lordship, Duke Atlas, with whom negotiations about your marriage are underway? The guy thought he was as lucky, talking about art with Mrs. Tatiana. She even smiled at him. Tatiana said in surprise. Is the wedding all rumors? That's how, the guy said. There are a lot of unfounded rumors. That's right. There's also a rumor, like the one about how you're only interested in paintings. Slander, said the guy. When the guy stepped aside, a maid came up asking, Madam, is everything really all right? But Tatiana replied that her bank account was blocked. Her inheritance was also gone. She's not going to ask her sisters for help, but she has no other relatives. That's her reality. Plus, this guy turned out to be the nicest guy who ever sent her love letters. Mistress, said the maid, why don't you just contact Lady Regina? You're sure she didn't know about everything beforehand? She only has 3 days left. What good will that do? Tatiana asked. Tatiana remembers Regina leaving. Mother asks her, is it really necessary to go so far away? She doesn't even know when their Tatiana might get engaged. Regina replies that she needs to leave anyway. She doubted that her future in-laws would like the fact that their sister-in-law had a thrice-divorced sister. Mother resented this, saying, Regina, you're wrong. And besides, she's looking for her 4th husband, Regina said goodbye and left. Tatiana asked, I wonder how pathetic she would look in her eyes. But the maid said, Mistress, don't be upset. Regina had been unhappy with Tatiana for a long time. Marquis Overton is a fine man in many ways, Tatiana said. Do you really want to marry him? Anne the maid asked. She just said he was one of the candidates. Anyway, it seems like Marquis is still in love with her. The maid said she doubted it was just that. God, he was so grateful he didn't know what to do with himself. Tatiana said they're going to the opera right now. Let's hurry up if we want to catch the performance. The maid got excited and said, Mistress, so you're still rearranging it. It's amazing. Tatiana replied that she knew enough to talk quietly with Count Fersen, who loved opera so much. She should be a lady, not a mere piece of jewelry. Appointments no matter the place or time. These words were always spoken to her by her mother as an admonition. Therefore, from her childhood, she received a decent education in art history and politics, and also studied foreign languages. She said to give her everything she gave her, but she can't take what's in her head, Tatiana thought. Maid Anne said that all the people you meet now will be like this. Don't worry, Anne. Anyone will be better than the Duke, Tatiana interrupted her. She'll be content as long as she's not being lied to. If it is just desire that makes her a greedy woman, then she may not marry at all. It would be better even for her. She wouldn't have to accept the reality around her. Will she wait to be thrown out into the street and left to fend for herself? According to the laws of the empire, an unmarried lady cannot leave her home until she is married or breaks her engagement. Her fans will once again come to her in hopes of wooing her, and by tomorrow, rumors will have spread all over Lebrun. At least it would give the Duke's family enough reason to break their engagement, Tatiana said. She might even be able to find a decent man to love her. Is there a friendly and loving family in this world? The girl thought. Lucky, who accompanied the color of high society, Lady Tatiana, on a walk to the opera house, the suitors gathering near the estate of the pictures. Was the news of her engagement only a rumor? Who was the lucky man who was eventually chosen by the cart? It was all printed in the local papers, just as Tatiana had planned. Yesterday she was seen on a boat trip on the river Sarta with the Count of Torino, and the day before yesterday at the art gallery and the opera house. How can a girl who is about to be married behave so frivolously? Alexei shouted, dealing with the newspaper in his hands in which all this was written. All this he shouted to Tatiana's mother, Larissa. The woman who took off her glasses said in a calm tone, You talk lightly. You know better than anyone what not to do before your own engagement. Do you disagree with her, your ladyship? Tatiana's mother asked. Alexei said, Do you mean to say that they are alike, mother? Aren't they, Viscountess? He shouted. Anyway, she's curious. Why do you keep insisting on marrying her daughter who is behaving so frivolously? Tatiana's mother asked. Do you know what she means, your ladyship? Tatiana's mother interjected. You're not used to holding back your desires. but you want her daughter so badly that you're willing to put up with it. You're not her equal, Alexei, said Tatiana's mother. Alexei asks, so are you going to do something about it? Right now, leave the past in the past. But you have to figure out what to do next. Larissa says she should think. The Duke should take up the matter personally. Talking in the street. People reading the newspaper. 1 time is fine. But 2 is a bit much, isn't it? You see it again, Cartien. Black Wolf's mercenaries discuss Tatiana or articles in the newspaper about Tatiana. She is so beautiful. They can't believe that there is someone equally beautiful. But one guy shouted, "Who cares about her beauty? Have you forgotten what that witch did to our captain?" Right, she really crossed the line, didn't she? Said the other guy. She's made it worse, trampled on his honor. It's a witch, a demon in the guise of an ordinary girl. At that moment, the red-eyed boy heard, for he was the one in question. A time when the crown prince was in charge of the treasury instead of the emperor, which kept his position. Kynal Townsend was just the head of a small band of mercenaries, an ordinary mercenary who received money for completing an assignment, nothing more and nothing less. However, he willingly kneeled before the emperor to rescue the missing crown prince. At the time, the captain's best friends were very outraged by his actions. They said, "This is suicide." It is said that even imperial knights would risk their own lives, in the face of death, by going where they were not allowed to go. Even if he did bow down, he still didn't give enough support. Because he couldn't get enough, throwing a banquet like he's so generous. And in a place like this, he has no shame. Before leaving for Cartman to rescue the crown prince, the first and last thing Kynal asked for was a dance with their young princess. Viscountess Cartien tore his letter to Tatiana to shreds. All this she did surrounded by groom candidates. They were all mocking Kynal. He'll wring that fox's neck someday. His friends resented him. One of the others told the other guy not to talk like that. He was going too far again. All boundaries. She's an aristocrat after all. And after all, it was the Viscountess, not Lady Tatiana. Apple of the apple. Or do you think she's different? Nevertheless, the papers say that the youngest daughter of the House of Cartien is not engaged to the Duke of Atlas. The witch wants to sell her daughter for a much better price, so rumor has it. Suddenly someone, talking a lot, said he'd totally figure it out and apologized, Commander. The victory banquet is already tomorrow night, Tatiana thought. Not bad. For the last 3 days she'd had a good time. That way even tonight she can get a marriage proposal. She was very curious as to whether the Marquis of Overton would approach first. Or would the Count Fersen? She can't believe they've suddenly fallen in love with her. If there was sincerity in that man, their cloak, Tatiana thought. Looking out the window, she thought it looked like it was going to rain like it did then. An event was held at the River Start to honor the sending of soldiers to the front. Married people were forbidden to come, because in the social circle it is customary to take care of those who may be the last. There were only knights and noble ladies, and there was a tradition of girls tying a ribbon on the hilt of a knight's sword. Memories from 3 years ago. Tatiana was also at this event. Her friends asked who she wanted to give her ribbon to. The second friend said she wouldn't give it to anyone. Oh, she can't. She doesn't have a ribbon. Indeed, or else the battle would have started immediately because of her. It looks like it's going to rain soon. She has to go back. The sky has been like this since this morning. Tatiana was about to leave when she noticed one person. She asked her friends who it was. He stood alone in a black cloak. Who is it that you can't tell from his appearance that he's a knight? One of her friends said, he wears a black robe. It's the mark of the Black Wolf. Her brother tells me it's a pretty famous mercenary unit. But the other friend said, yeah, but why did they even call someone not of noble blood here? Tatiana said that this was the last solemn ceremony before being sent to the front. So it was probably right for all those who would be involved in the war to gather. It is a kind of kindness. One of her friends told Tatiana that she shouldn't be interested in such things. Do you think if your mother finds out it will mean something? Tatiana looked at the guy and thought he just looked a little like her. It had already started to drip rain. They should get back before it got any heavier. I think her carriage is already here. Tatiana, you ride with her. She'll drop you off on the way. Go first. Her carriage will arrive soon too, laughed Tatiana. It was pouring rain. Tatiana stood under the umbrella and admired every drop of rain. Literally not far from her stood this knight in a black cloak and hood. He didn't have an umbrella. He just might in this rain. Tatiana noticed him and decided to approach him and strike up a conversation. She asked him, "Is this your first time participating in something like this?" The guy turned to her and looked at her. Tatiana noticed how beautiful his eyes were, like two rubies. She handed him an umbrella and said, "Please take it. It's going to rain all night." But the guy said, "No need, keep the umbrella." "Well, how? If you get wet in this weather, you'll turn to ice before you even get home. You don't want to die before you get to the front, do you?" said Tatiana. The guy replied that he was fine, so no need to worry about him. He had a hood and a cape. There was a voice. "Miss Tatiana." The girl turned and saw that her carriage had arrived. The girl realized it was time for her to leave, but she wanted to do something to please that guy. She urgently took the bank off her head, and she tied it to the umbrella. It was really cute. Then she held out this umbrella to the guy and asked, "You still don't want to take it?" And also added that she was exercising her right as a lady. "So you can't refuse, since you're at the banquet. You have to follow the established rules." Thus, she forced him to take this umbrella. Lastly, as she was already running away, she said she would pray for your success in the battle. When Tatiana came running to the carriage, the maid saw that she had no umbrella. "Oh my God," she said. "Where is your umbrella, madam? She'll have her head blown off if she finds out." Tatiana only found out who this guy was after a while. A disgrace to the Torg family, son of a viscount, a member of the Black Wolf of War, the only one who volunteered to save the crown prince. They say he sent her a letter asking for a dance. Tatiana was sweetly reminiscing when a maid ran into the room and shouted, "Madam, a letter from the Marquis of Overton has just arrived." Tatiana said, "At last," and began urgently to open the letter and read what it said. "Dear Lady Cartier, he sincerely apologizes, but our arrangements for today—" When Tatiana reached the end, she told her maid to get ready to depart now, and Tatiana's voice was very upset. After that, she took this letter written by the Marquis and just crumpled it up out of anger. "Send it to him quickly and make sure you don't damage anything. Lord Overton commands the carriers of valuables." "You seem to be quite busy," Lord Overton said. "Lady Cartier," he said. "So that's why you cancelled so suddenly," Tatiana said. "Aren't you lucky to get a great painting?" The girl walked over and threw off her coverlet to see what the painting was. A marvelous work by Ronoff, painted in the 524th year of the imperial calendar. He was an artist at the court of the Carmenia royal family, so this work belonged to the royal court. However, 5 years ago, the Frey Empire accepted Carmenia as its vassal, and then this painting was brought here. To them in her mother's private vault in this art gallery. This masterpiece was done with a special writing technique. It is so rare that an ordinary person would sell an arm and a leg to get it, Tatiana said. Now please tell me the truth. Did her mother offer you this painting in return for you stopping their meetings? Vicomtessa begged him earnestly, said the boy. Well, you got the opportunity to touch such a desirable thing, replied Tatiana. But my lady, you lied to him too, didn't you? Tatiana interjected. What was she lying about? You said there is nothing between you and the Duke of Lascum. However, your engagement will be announced at the imperial banquet tomorrow. Tatiana said, So why didn't you ask her directly if you thought she was deceiving you? The girl turned around, saying to her maid, Anne, let's go. Leaving, you might say, as a farewell, Tatiana kicked this painting with her foot, so that the fellow shrieked, Ah! His painting! This incident with the Marquis was, in a way, an example of gentlemanliness. One hid in the cellar, another got so drunk that he passed out, and yet another decided to leave to avoid seeing her. They all had some good reason. Tatiana wondered if she had been too greedy. She wanted just a drop of trust. It seems to be gathering rain, said the maid. She'll call a carriage. Perhaps we should go back. Back? To where? Asked Tatiana. Does she have a home to return to? The girls headed for their carriage. But then another carriage came to meet them, and they were very surprised. Opening the carriage door, her mother stepped out. Larissa got out of the carriage and asked her daughter if she was waiting for someone. Mother continued to ask her if she had somewhere else to go. I doubt it, she said. Tatiana said, So it was you after all, mother? And Larissa made no secret of it, saying, Yes, it was her. Who else could it be? Nice try, Tatiana. Yes, a new future husband. And they're quite suitable candidates. But she's told her many times, hasn't she? It's all about money and power in this world, child of hers, Larissa said. At first, she simply told them to stop seeing you. They didn't back down, though. So you bribed them with money, Tatiana suggested. Mother replied that money was only the tip of the iceberg. These people knew what would happen if she held a grudge against them. She didn't really want to tell her any of this since, unlike her sisters, she wasn't the type to give up after hearing something like this. After all, she is her most precious treasure. The maid Anne said, "Ma'am, Mistress is probably in shock right now, so maybe we should get in the carriage first and—" Mistress interrupted her, saying, "Shut your mouth, Anne." She hadn't finished her sentence yet. Mother went on to say that she now knows and should realize who will be hurt if she acts like this. It seems she will also have to fire her ungrateful maid. Tatiana shouted that she was the one who hired her, but Mother poked her with her nose for Mother's money. A maid was hired. Of course, that wouldn't happen if she showed up at the Imperial Palace tomorrow wearing her wedding ring. Mother got into the carriage and said, of course she couldn't force her, but in the end she despised such a barbaric approach. Back home whenever you want, Tiana. It was raining so hard outside that they had to open umbrellas. The maid said, your mother is right. What are they going to do now, ma'am? Tatiana said, did you, Anne, really believe her? The maid replied, but you saw for yourself what became of those gentlemen in the Frey Empire. There is no one who can go against her will. Tatiana said she thought her mother was right. She not only has something to lose, but something she has to protect. Mother definitely inspires fear, and she was too naive. Should have realized the risks from the beginning. Tatiana turns around and walks away. The maid shouts, where will you go now? We don't have anyone else. And Tatiana replied that no, there was one more guy left, one more chance to survive. Commander, there's a telegram for you from home, said the guy who delivered the telegram. The two friends stood there wondering what was going on. Had there really been a war or something? Why didn't he just shut his mitt to hear what the commander was saying? The commander said, it's not like they've been back that long and they're sending us out again. Holy shit, the aide asked. And where to this time? The commander unfolded the letter and began to read. When he had reached the end, he asked, and when did the telegram come? The aide replied, just now. The commander abruptly turned around and ran somewhere without saying anything to anyone. He had this letter dropped off, which contained an urgent request for an audience with Lady Cartienne. When the boy jumped up on his horse and started to ride, he had a lot of thoughts in his mind. The past stays in the past, he thought. He remembered how he came to Tatiana's mother. Mother asked, you say you've come because of her daughter? Oh God, you can leave her your letter, and surely she will give it to her. Contempt for the man who came to her daughter without realizing his place. Such insults are stronger than any swear word. But that was only the beginning. Mother said, oh my God, he's really coming back. He wants to know the answer, Lady Cartier, the young man said. He knew how stupid he looked. The mother screamed that she didn't like the way he just said her daughter's name. Of course, she burned his letter as soon as she read it. It's unfortunate you can't tell the difference between sympathy and mere empathy. He kept wondering why he'd gone through with it. He knew he would be humiliated. So why does he make the same mistake over and over again? Will he be able to find out when he meets her? The same story as in the beginning is repeated. The guy rode his horse to his house. The butler informs him that she insisted on seeing him, and she is waiting for him. He walked into the room and saw her full beauty. She stood waiting for him. He wondered what exactly he should make sure of. When they had a glass of wine, Tatiana asked him to light the fireplace. She was cold and wet from the rain. When she looked into his eyes, she saw the same eye color as before. This was her last chance. She had nothing left. She's all alone in this hostile world. Pride has no meaning. Kinnell said, so tell me, Miss Tatiana, why did you come to see him?